Salut, je m'appelle Eli. Il s'appelle Levi. Et tout son nom Irrevvverent. And now that I've offended those two random French people that decided to listen to us last week, hello and welcome to Irreverent. The
Holy
insult
crap.
was my French skills.
I,
You weren't ready for
did,
that one, were you?
yeah. Yeah. You caught me completely off guard with that. I was expecting a joke, but not in French.
Anyway, it was a very packed weekend. We had, between the two different sprint races and a doubleheader, we're going to be talking about at least 6 different races, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
So, to get us started on that, well, first I guess I should probably actually talk about what races we're going to talk about. Yeah, little details like that.
Yeah,
We're going to be talking about the MotoGP in the Netherlands, Formula E in Portland, Oregon, and F1 in Austria, not Australia, Austria, there we go, the other one. And then...
Piastri reigns supreme in both.
I mean, he had a good weekend, but we'll get to that.
He really did. He really did.
Yeah. Then if we have time, we'll also talk a little bit about NASCAR this weekend. But to kick us off, we are going to go ahead and go over to our resident MotoGP expert, Levi. Try not to make me sound like an idiot for calling you that.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Guys, when I think of a good motorsport, I like that there's still at least one motorsport out there where there's at least one fatality every year. That was a joke. I promise. No.
I was typing, so I'm trying to type to pick up the title, and so I have it muted, and you just hit me with that. Come on.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, come on. I mean, like F1, NASCAR. I mean, no one's dying at Talladega anymore. No one's dying at Monaco. It's kind of dull. And that's why I went to TTS this weekend in the Netherlands. And no, nobody died. Now, what's sad, Eli? As I joke, but Alex Rins literally got injured on the race start this week. Like 500 feet into the race, Alex Rins, I think he broke.
I was gonna say, I thought I saw something about someone breaking like part of their spine and cracking a rib or something like that.
I am not sure about that. I actually didn't hear anything about that. I hope it's a fake rumor.
That might have been like Moto. That might have been like GP2 or something.
I did see a pretty ridiculous wreck in Moto 2 on my IG. Like, I did see this awful, what's it called when the bike, it's like it's like the bike sends the rider into the air, and there's a word for that, but I am actually not a MotoGP expert, so I forget what that's called. Anyway, I'll just keep going. I really want to remember that. It's that one, it's one term that's really eluding me. There's literally a resident word for when a bike, like, for when the rear, it loses traction, the rear does, and then when it regains traction and hits the tarmac, it flips the bike rearwards up and sends the rider. Yeah, it sends the rider in the sky.
Dang it! I know what the word is, but I can't remember it.
Yeah, no, this is gonna torture me the whole episode. It starts, I think, with a B.
Anyway, just keep talking about the race, and then you'll have it suddenly come to you in the middle of your discussion, and you'll just shout it.
Yeah, no, I'll do that. Now, try to Google it for me. Like, Google that while I keep talking. So, anyway, but there were unfortunately a couple injuries that happened this weekend. Honestly, the joke at the beginning is just aging so horribly after this. Nah, this is the most dangerous sport in the world. Anyway, so in case you missed it, this weekend at the Netherlands, Francesco Bagnaia won the race. I forget how many wins he has this year. I think that's the third win. I know he's won back-to-back, and he is now only 10 points away from Jorge Martin, the championship leader, who finished in second this weekend, followed by Enea Bastianini in third. And I would go off and name the rest, but I think the podium's okay. It's all Ducati podium. Ducati factory team 1-3. Francesco Bagnaia, some race day notes. shattered the TT lap record in qualifying on pole. Led, I think, every lap. I think he led every lap. Guys, there wasn't a ton to talk about. It was sad because I was like, MotoGP is the feature race this week, and the race was not one of the best Assen races. Like before the podcast started, Eli and me were talking, and Eli was like, "I think Assen is just not a good track," and I'm like, "I promise, it is better than what happened this weekend." The thing is,
I remember. I know
Eli,
what stat you're talking about. He got pole for both the main race and the sprint race, and led every lap of both.
oh, there was a sprint race this weekend, guys. I totally forgot. Eli, now you're making me look like an idiot.
I just rewatched it earlier today to refresh myself. So they mentioned that in the end on the commentary. That's why I remember it.
Yeah, Pecco really. He honestly, I think what he did is illegal in 5 countries. Like, I feel like that's on another level of like people are like F1 dominance is boring, but try it with bikes. Like the main appeal of bike racing is that everyone is so darn equal, and it's all in the rider, not just the bike. And then you have a guy like Banaya just leading every lap, smashing a pole record, getting both poles, and winning. And I think Jorge Martin kind of challenged him at some point in the race, but it wasn't too bad. Like it was kind of clear sailing for Banaya. And
I was gonna say it was really only for a little bit at the very beginning, and then after that, there was like a 2 or 3 second gap.
Yeah, Ducati is so good, and it would have been nice to see what Bastianini would have done if he started kind of closer to the front, because 10th to 3rd is very, very good. Very good. And it would have been nice, honestly, like if Ania Bastianini, like, here's my thing. Eli, I don't know if you know this. If you do, I'm sorry for mansplaining, but Ania Bastianini to Francesco Banaya, I'm not going to say it's like Checo to Verstappen, but it's definitely closer to like 2019 Bottas to Lewis Hamilton. Like, Bastianini is definitely really, really good, and he's going to get wins here or there. Actually, I don't think he's even won at Ducati. That's sad, but he's going to challenge for wins here or there. But Francesco Banaya is going to get the bulk of everything. So yeah, I'm not sure if Bastianini would have gotten the win at all, but it would have been nice to see what he could have done with a higher up grid position. Because going from 10th to 3rd, and the only 2 guys that beat you was your teammate with the same bike and Jorge Martin, who's leading the standings on a really good Prima Promic Ducati. Yeah, that's a good weekend for Ducati.
Not something to complain about, that's for sure.
What do you say?
I said it's definitely not a result to complain about, that's for sure.
Oh yeah. Nah, I would root for Bastianini just to get some mix in there, but thankfully Jorge Martin is looking really good this year. He only finished 3.5 seconds off Banaya. It could be worse. So other highlights from the race. Francesco Banaya has now matched Casey Stoner's record for most wins in a Ducati. And everybody knows how much I love Casey Stoner. And mind you, Francesco Banaya did this on a Ducati with traction control and aero. Casey Stoner did this on a Ducati that was arguably only at best the 3rd best bike in the field when he had it. So I'm always Team Stoner here. Not undermining the accomplishments, just Stoner did it better. I'm sorry. Anything else am I missing? Like big stats happened this weekend besides the 2 injuries. Marc Marquez got penalized because of his tire pressure was too low.
Huh. I didn't see that.
He got a.
I think Mark down the sprint.
Yeah, I forget. I think Marc Marquez finished top 5. I want to say
he finished decently high up.
Yeah, definitely. Marc Marquez has been really good this year. They're going to the Saxon Ring this upcoming weekend, and a lot of people are really excited because like it's one of Marquez's best tracks, and with how good he and his team have been this year, they're like, if Marc Marquez is going to win this year, it's probably going to be this weekend. And honestly, as a guy who loves seeing old veterans who've lost their dominance dominate again, it's actually kind of fun. Like, I'm totally in for a Marquez win. Um, so yeah, Marquez got penalized,
He
and
took a
Alex Rins is going to have a.
16-second post-race penalty
So
for
that would
tire
put him
pressure.
7 seconds. Okay, so that would have put him in fourth. So Bastianini would have been on the podium anyway, but that put Marquez in fourth. That's yeah. I mean, Marquez is third in the points this year. It's not nearly as close as Bastianini, not Bastianini, Banaya and Martin, but like once again, Marc Marquez on this Ducati is just looking really, really good, and I'm pretty excited to see what he does at the Saxon Ring this weekend. But past weekend, it was pretty good. Not gonna lie, the Rossi Marquez days were better battling than the Banaya Martin days. Have you seen Eli? So this is our first time covering MotoGP as like
It
the feature
is.
race here on our podcast, and just a quick like personal note is I have been following MotoGP for about the past year. I really do like motorcycles in general. But yeah, it's our first weekend covering it. So what's kind of your knowledge base, Eli? Like, how much of MotoGP do you know?
So that's the thing. I've been getting into MotoGP in the same way that I get into every single racing series, which is usually just randomly seeing a clip at some point of some incident. And then somebody's like, oh, if you think that's wild, you should check this one out. And so I go down a rabbit hole of just watching a bunch of different clips of highlights from over the years and then slowly start watching it live. So I'm at the point where I start watching it live right now. Which means that I know full well that the racing can be infinitely better than what we just saw.
No, and I think this is actually a good point to get into our aero discussion. Because we can get into how much I love motorcycles later. But I know we talked before the podcast about aero and the controversy behind it.
Yeah, I
Um,
follow on X, Twitter, a couple of people who, a bunch of different like motorsports journalists, and a couple of them predominantly focus on MotoGP and follow that calendar. So I have seen a lot of the information about the aero stuff that's been going on this year, particularly the lack of fondness for the existence of diffusers.
mhm. Yeah, Eli, I was gonna say I was really excited to MotoGP because I was gonna talk about like pre-aero days. I remember it was one of our first episodes. We were talking about how too much downforce can ruin any racing series, like NASCAR,
Yeah,
IndyCar. Like
it
too
was the
much
episode.
downforce.
It was the episode that we were discussing the upcoming F1 reg changes.
Yeah, yeah, and how like no arrow on the straight could be a good thing.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think that's why MotoGP has always historically been so tightly contested. There has never really been a walkaway champion too often. It's like bikes in general, it matters a ton with the rider, like much more than drivers do in racing, regular car racing. Like car racing, the skill set is much, much tighter than it is in bike racing. Like the rider can do so much, and you can give a rider, once again, like Casey Stoner in the Ducati in '07. Like you can give a rider the only the third best bike in the field, and he can still go out and win the championship because he is the best rider in the field, and it doesn't entirely matter how good the bike is. Of course, it needs to be competitive, but if the bike isn't the cream of the crop, a cream of the crop rider can still bring it a title. But yeah, like MotoGP, the whole point of bike racing is extremely tight. There is no real arrow besides trying to increase your top speed with fenders and a helmet. Um, but now that diffusers and front end downforce have become a thing, and even wakes and stuff like that, and traction control, all of a sudden, like now it actually matters how good the bike is. Now it's actually turning into, because MotoGP has always kind of been an engine championship in a way. It's always been about the power of the bike, and some bikes have had really good grip. some bikes have had really good high end speed. Like once again, talking about Ducati, I remember in the late 2010s, Ducati had some great straight speed, but not as good maybe as the Yamaha and the Honda were in corners. Yamaha Honda, but yeah, so it's always been kind of an engine championship with maybe some body tweaks and stuff. But the body work has never really mattered too much because it was always cut and dry, simple. Like just try to decrease your drag the best you can. But now, like now they're talking about the aero and everything. Not only are you putting aero on the bikes, and now it's becoming not just an engine championship, but very, very much a constructor's bodywork championship like F1. Like the bike itself matters. Now we're seeing racing not as close. Now we're seeing if you get in the wake of a bike, you actually might like not be as good in a corner, which was never a thing. And now with traction control, riders like Francesco Bagnaia have gotten better, or other racers have or like Marc Marquez, who had to readapt his riding style to traction control. It's just yeah, no, I don't think it's good. I think the point of these race bikes, I mean, it's not like these are saving injuries either.
See, I did hear that the part of the argument for traction control was to cause less incidents in tight racing.
That's good. But usually in tight racing, they don't wreck on the straights. And it's very rare that a rider has gotten injured in a tight battle in corners. And I appreciate that they're trying to make it so he just doesn't wreck at all. But if you're looking at pure rider safety and then also looking at the entertainment value, what are you really gaining besides maybe money saved for the teams and the potential to wreck out? Like some of the greatest wheel-to-wheel battles in history have been on bikes with no traction control. And
well, also
now that we have
that turn one incident that happens in this race.
Yeah, no,
was because of loss of traction, so it's not even actually doing its job fully.
Yeah, and Alex Rins, like turn one at Assen is a gear 2 corner. Like you're down to second gear trying to make that corner at maybe 80 miles an hour or less. And yeah, no, that happened because like Eli said, loss of traction. So the traction control, and honestly, I appreciate traction control, but I wish maybe it was moved down to like Moto 3 or my God, or Moto 2. Mardartel. But that's how passionate I am about it. Like, traction control is a great invention, but if we're looking at pure quality of racing, the driver's health usually has never relied on traction control. Or it's not like I looked at Marc Marquez's Spain incident from 2020 and thought, man, if Marc Marquez had traction control, he probably wouldn't have hurt himself. So, yeah, I'm with the critics and everything. I think it's good technology, but put in a below series, put it in a Moto 2 or 3 where the riders could actually probably benefit from that. And the riders could learn a lot with it. But in MotoGP, like it's kind of, I don't want to say ruined the racing, but it definitely hasn't produced the racing they thought it was going to produce for sure.
Yeah. It can help some series, but I don't see it really. These bikes are always going to be inherently unstable unless you start adding, like Ducati's wild gyroscopic stabilization stuff that they have on some of their sports bikes, which I don't think anyone would do just because of the weight of it.
Is insanely lit, but yeah, it's just it is insanely
like it's
lit.
An awesome thing for a street bike, but the point of it is you sacrifice weight so that you're able to not crash out, and these guys should be good enough to not need that.
Yeah, these guys have been riding since literally as long as they could balance a bike, and yeah, like it's put in there on a street bike because Ducati well knows that to sell a bike for $18,000, you can't put exotic MotoGP materials in it, and so you're going to need a little something to help the rider manage the 400-pound bike beneath them.
You don't want to murder your entire every single person who buys your bike and giving a random dude a MotoGP bike, they will die. You will murder your customers.
Yeah, no, leader bikes. I love leader bikes, and when it comes to collectible models, leader bikes are the first I go for, and the Kawasaki Ninja 400 because I love it, the look wise. But yeah, no, guys, if you're wanting to buy a motorcycle, I get the whole pride thing, but please don't start with a leader bike. Don't. To all zero listeners right now, please don't start on a leader bike.
Mm-hmm.
You will. Yeah, no, you're totally gonna die. Anyway, I don't have too much to say about the race, honestly. Like, that's kind of the highlights. That's kind of what's going on. Do you maybe want to talk about Sachsenring coming up?
I know nothing about it, but I don't think we
Okay.
really have. We're probably going to talk about it next week, so if you want to
Oh,
give a
okay.
bit
I
of a
guess.
preview.
Yeah, I'll give a bit of a preview, and also I'll use my remaining 10 minutes to talk about my favorite motorcycles. And actually, I want to talk about the manufacturers championship too before we're done. But preview for next week. Yeah, we'll talk about Sac. Actually, will we talk about Sachsenring? I mean, I'm sure we're going to include it in our news segment, but
I was going to say, unless there's. I feel like it's going to probably be the thing that, if there's not a bunch of news, we slot in there. The main things next week will probably be Silverstone and Mid Ohio.
yeah. And also Chicago Street Race if SVG wins.
Yeah.
Do you know SVG's racing cup this weekend? I'm so excited.
I wasn't sure if it had been confirmed yet.
It is. He's in the 91.
Good. That'd be idiotic.
He's going to win this so hard. He will win this. I am so confident. Like, they're going to give him the same setup. Like, everything's going to be the same. I'm just so excited. And he has a year of experience under his belt of doing this. Like, I actually think he can do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's maybe next week, Sachsenring. If Mark Marquez wins, I'll definitely mention it. But also just I do want to cover the manufacturers championship because we love motorcycles, we really do. And and there isn't maybe much to talk about because Ducati is murdering everybody. Like, I think it goes Ducati and then Aprilia, then KTM, then Honda, and then Yamaha, I think. I can't get. Also, by the way, MotoGP isn't good at a lot of things with coverage. I can't go back and watch full races a lot.
They are all on
So
Max. At
wait, you
least for
can
this
rewatch
season.
all of them on Max?
At least
Wait.
this season's. I've not looked back further.
Okay, never mind. I stand corrected. MotoGP is amazing at doing this.
Well, it's not MotoGP, it's HBO.
But MotoGP signed the agreement, so henceforth you shall be known as Darth Ducati. But yeah, that's kind of the championship right now. Ducati's murdering everybody. And this century, I was thinking back at good manufacturers because Ducati is without a doubt they've been the powerhouse of the 2020s. I forget which manufacturer Fabio Quartararo won with in 2021. I think it was Yamaha. I really think it was Yamaha. And Joan Mir won with Suzuki the year before, which I think that was Suzuki's only win in the 21st century. But I was thinking back while I was at work, Eli, and like I want to say, let's see, Rossi had 3 with Honda, Marquez had 6, Stoner 1, Ren 1, not Ren. Why would I say Ren? What's his name? Hayden 1. And this century, Honda and Yamaha have been the powerhouse of MotoGP. They have been MotoGP. Honda has won, is that 11 times with their bike? Yeah, 11 times. And Yamaha has won 3 times with Jorge Lorenzo, 1 time with Fabio Quartararo, and how many times with I think 4 times with Rossi. So Yamaha has won 8. Honda has won 11. Suzuki has won 1. And Ducati, before 2022, Ducati only had one, and that was Casey Stoner in 2007. But yeah, in MotoGP's history, Ducati has never really been a thing. They definitely have, but when people think MotoGP, they're like, Castrol Honda. I'm all over the place. Repsol Honda, right? And Movistar Yamaha, right? Like those two teams, respectively, have won 19 manufacturers' championships. Is that true? No, they've at least won 19 riders' championships this century. And I like that Suzuki's won one, but unless you're a Japanese brand, you don't really win MotoGP much. And to have brands in MotoGP now, it's kind of crazy to think that it's dominantly European. Like it used to always be the Japanese Big Four, and Kawasaki was horrible, but I loved them. Kawasaki literally was terrible in MotoGP. But yeah, Ducati had only ever won one, but now you have brands like Aprilia and KTM with Ducati, and the only Japanese brands we have right now is Honda and Yamaha. Like Suzuki and Kawasaki are nowhere to be seen. And Ducati, yeah, they're slaying everybody. Like they've won the past 2 years, and they are very much on track to win again this year. Like the only drivers in contention right now are Ducatis.
I was
So
gonna say, is there even a way for Ducati to not win this year?
let me relook at the standings. I seriously, there is no way Ducati can't win this year. But yeah, I was just saying it's kind of interesting to see MotoGP and motorcycles in general go from our poster childs are the Japanese Big Four and their four respective all-time leader bikes, and they are going to win motorcycle racing. But yeah, like the turn of this decade, Ducati has kind of been like slowly but surely, like especially when Andrea Dovizioso was at Ducati, like Ducati slowly but surely just started winning a lot. And and I guess Valentino Rossi was at Ducati for a couple years. But yeah, like they have definitely just become a powerhouse of MotoGP and have become the face of MotoGP. And it is just kind of weird to see when people think motorcycles, they think the Japanese Big Four. But now Ducati's kind of leading the charge for European sport bikes to be the thing. And I'm kind of excited because we live in America. In case you didn't know that, our French listeners, we live in America. And we're not really known for a sport bike. We don't have our sport bike, do we?
America's not aside from like Harley and Indian making cruisers. America is not known for motorcycles.
Yeah, we are the muscle car and NASCAR and Cadillac country. We don't have sport bikes really, and so it's kind of cool, Eli, to me because I feel like sport bikes in general, like motorcycles in general, have always been a step behind cars and reaching global prominence. Like where everybody knows what Ferrari, Lamborghini is. Everybody knows what Mustang, Camaro is. If you go up on the street and say, "Hey, can like Ninja H2R or Ducati Panigale V4, who wins?" Nobody knows that's a thing. Nobody knows there's any rivalry between that.
You did make a fatal mistake there.
What?
The Ninja is like the only sport bike anyone knows about.
That might be true. I think everybody does know about Ninja. But besides like being the fastest sport bike in the world, there isn't like a sport bike or even less any bike rivalry really to a degree where everybody knows about it. But yeah, so to see MotoGP go from a Japanese Big Four thing to now we've definitely evolved into Japanese, but also the Europeans are dominating MotoGP. Like, are we next? Like, is there going to be an American company? Like, is Harley Davidson going to unveil a sport bike and all of a sudden America has a sport bike dominating MotoGP?
No.
I
Harley can barely sell normal
maybe,
motorcycles anymore.
But eventually, like now America's going into America's been in F1. They're not dominating, but they're in F1. And they're kind of always in global motorsports. I mean, the Ford Focus has always been in WRC. So it's kind of like when is America going to go to MotoGP and go up to Japan and Europe and say, "Hey, here's our sport bike and here's our two riders." Like I'm not even sure, like I don't think is Triumph or MV Augusta American? I don't think they are. I literally think we have Indian and Harley Davidson, and that might be it.
I was gonna say, isn't Triumph uh, British? Or am I just like
Yeah,
massively misremembering?
I am too lazy to look it up either way. I just know there isn't an American sport bike. It's not that bothers me. It's just that seeing MotoGP go from a Japanese thing to a now a European thing, like, is it going to travel across the sea? And is like one of the Americas? Is there going to be a South American company that rises up with a sport bike?
Yeah, Triumph is British.
Okay, so yeah, there really isn't an American company that could even manufacture a sport bike right now without heavy testing.
I was gonna say, I feel
And
like Indian could probably get away with it.
with that, I feel like I'd really root for Indian. Like, listeners, I grew up with an Indian moped. Like, I knew about Indian mopeds and I've ridden one. And to see Indian reveal a sport bike, that would be. But then again, if Indian tried to take their sport bike to a global competition, I feel like there'd be so much backlash for the name.
Oh yeah, probably.
Like, they're like, you can totally enter MotoGP, but you have to enter you have to like be a different brand. They're like, fine, Commanders, Commander motorcycles,
Guardians.
the Guardian motorcycle. But enough about the NFL. But yeah, so that was just kind of my
Guardians.
spiel on what's happening with the manufacturers championship. I do like it, but it's kind of like it's interesting to really just sit down and think like, okay, Yamaha and Honda have been the brands. Kawasaki, unfortunately, I love Kawasaki so much. Like, to represent the color green, I love them. And if Kawasaki re-entered a Ninja into MotoGP and started winning, that would be the biggest thing ever. But really, unless you're Honda or Yamaha or Joan Mir, you really haven't won MotoGP this century. But yeah, now European sport bikes are MotoGP, and that's just cool to me. It's cool to see the evolution firsthand. And yeah, I actually hope that maybe in the future there's a cool American sport bike brand that can add to the diversity there.
Yeah, I'm just
But
looking up what other.
we're desperately trying to find out what American company could actually manufacture a sport bike.
I mean, there's
Honest,
Arch. It wouldn't be mass produced.
yeah, yeah, no, like if there was a company, because also like Honda produces cars, like why couldn't I don't know? Is there a car brand in the U.S. that used to also produce motorcycles that would probably could go back to doing it again?
I mean, technically, yes, but not really.
I would be so stoked.
My reason for saying that, you have to remember at one point, every single country in America, company in America, with any automotive manufacturing capability built motorcycles because we dropped them out of airplanes in World War II.
Nothing like a motorcycle, but um, I would be so pumped if Ford unveiled a motorcycle.
Most American motorcycle brands that I've been able to, just looking them up, aside from the legacy ones that are making something like a sport bike, are all focusing on electric.
Oh, there's an electric sport bike. Is that American? It's the something something Lightning.
Lightning LS 218.
Is that American?
Yes, from Zero
Holy crap.
Motorcycles.
Holy crap, guys. What if MotoGP lets them in? No way they will.
I mean, Moto E
But
is
what
a
if
thing. I know nothing about it, but it does exist.
they have to do it? They have to do it. They gotta they have to put it in there. We just need an American motorcycle in there. Um but yeah, enough about me tongue bathing motorcycles as a form of transportation because it doesn't I don't know if you think about it, like once again, not only has it not reached much in America, but like I feel like just in general, there's way more car stuff than motorcycles.
In the US, motorcycles are associated with, like, not to throw shade on anybody we know named Roger. But they are associated with men in their 40s or older driving Harleys.
Not wrong, but I also take immense offense to that.
I mean, look, I like
I am
motorcycles too, but you
I
gotta
am
admit,
so angry at
wild
that.
hogs is the public perception of motorcycles in America.
Guys, he isn't lying. As soon as I told my friends I want a motorcycle, they're like, "Oh, you're getting a hog? Let's go! Ride that hog!" And now they're calling me a prize pig stud because I'm riding a hog.
Oh,
Please don't edit that out.
of course not.
I'm so good. But yeah, like, and like in terms of car stuff, like we have Need for Speed games where you can literally just drive cars. We have Forza where you can literally just drive cars. Whereas a Forza equivalent to motorcycles where you can just ride stock motorcycles around a city and do objectives and stuff. There's the series Ride, but Ride is more focused on racing.
Mm-hmm.
Ride is more like a Forza Motorsport where they'll give you, a stock bike, but you have to race it. But yeah, we need some of that. We need some of that love.
Yeah.
I have an itch that I need to scratch.
I think with MotoGP, especially the broadcasting rights and all that now being owned by an American company and it making a stronger push in the US, we might start seeing changes there.
That'd be so good.
Yeah.
So good.
But anyway, I think we've pretty much exhausted the MotoGP talk.
No, we haven't. We haven't even come close. We have to start talking about 125cc motorcycles and why we love them.
That conversation can happen on another date when we don't have
No.
6 more races to talk about.
Hey, you French listeners. Hey, Eli, I have to assert dominance. I'm so sorry. No, I'm not sorry. You two French listeners, if you are listening, I am so jealous. Europe has so many good 125cc sport bike options. Guys, America has no sport bike 125cc's. It's not that we have bad options. They're just all naked. They're all naked 125cc bikes. There is not a single Ninja 125. There is not a single Suzuki, I don't know, GSX 125. There's not a Yamaha YZ 125. We have none of that. We don't have any good options. It's all like, it's either 400cc or nothing. Like, I'm sorry, bud. You're just going to have to wreck yourself. Sorry.
Just get good.
Anyway. Yeah, no, literally. In America, you either have to get good on a leader bike immediately or you're dead. That's all. There is no good beginner option on a sport bike.
Or you get to start on a scooter.
That's not the worst. But
you do have
to
deal with that.
My dream bike is a 125cc sport bike. An actual, like, sport bike. Like, I don't want to, guys, I'm not like an experienced rider, but also like I'm not a dangerous guy. So I want the beauty and pleasure of a sport bike, but I also don't want to like go on the highway with it. I kind of just want to go back road riding. But apparently not.
Let me just make a note for future reference that when we talk about MotoGP, it has to be at the end because it's going to always lead to this.
No, yeah, make that note, Eli. Go ahead. See if you stick to it. I have so much complaining to do. Europeans have everything when it comes to sport bikes. I'm so jealous. I am actually so jealous.
But you're forgetting that we end the episodes with an open discussion section.
I don't care. The definition of podcasting is open to
It's not the definition of podcasting, it's that I have notes that I need to go through.
You know what? You know what? Fine. I'm going to go downstairs and I'm going to get something to eat, and you can talk about your stupid FE.
All right.
Not for real. I'll be back.
Okay. Go to a bit of a break then. And we are back. So, now that Levi has food and has talked about MotoGP, up next we are going to go ahead and start talking about Formula E. So this weekend we had a doubleheader at Portland. And unfortunately, we're not going back there next year.
Oh, wait, for real?
Yeah, next year it's Miami. What's that oval called?
Oh, Homestead, Miami? We're going on Oval?
No, it's the infield road course, but
Oh,
at
man.
Homestead.
I actually thought they were going to do an FE Oval race, and I got so excited.
No, FE cars require braking, otherwise they can only go like 5 laps.
That would be
But here's the
the
thing:
best sprint rate.
their requirement of braking is what makes Portland so great for them. So,
Oh, I believe you.
yeah. So since this is our first time talking about Formula E, what's worth mentioning is, what is Formula E? It's an open wheel racing series with electric cars. And the thing that makes Portland so great for it is there is a grand total of one heavy braking zone at the end of the front straight. Everything else is a medium to high speed corner. Which means that by the end of the main straight, every single driver is lifting and coasting, which means you get like 6, 7, 8 cars side by side up and down the field going into turn 1. And the reason this is worth mentioning is because it leads to massive changes in the lead, just swinging every single lap. So, have you seen how some people are talking about, and some of the drivers have been complaining about, pack racing in Formula E?
All I ever heard is you talk about how amazing it is, and I agree with you.
So, yeah, that's the thing. Portland E-Prix last year is what cemented that as the racing style for Gen 3. Because all of the rest of the races, like, you could see it pop up sometimes, but pretty much only like it had in, like, previous seasons. Then they got to Portland. And it was realized, oh no, this is just the best way to race these cars. So
it didn't do it in Gen 2 at all?
Like, it would pop up sometimes, but it would be for, like, only a couple of laps, or things like that. And it wouldn't be these giant mobs. It would just be, like, you know, you'd get, like, 6 cars grouped up into a pack, and then, like, 5, like, half second off of them, you'll have, like, 5 or 6 more, and stuff like that. Now it's, like, everybody is a blob.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, in this race, the current championship leader and my favorite driver qualified. I believe that in round 1 he qualified 8th, I want to say. Let me see if I can pull it up. And Formula E has a really interesting qualifying format, which we're not going to talk about because Levi didn't watch the race, so I don't know how much he actually knows about it.
Wait. I mean, you're totally okay to mansplain me.
The thing is, Effie's... So I'll give a quick summary of it, but not watching it makes it really hard to understand what makes it so great. Basically, the way that Formula E's qualifying works is... the grid... So Formula E normally races on really tight street tracks. So you can't fit all 22 cars on at a time and have them getting clean air, clean laps, without being interrupted by each other. So what they do is they split the field into 2 groups based on their championship standings. And I believe it's even as group... Odd is Group A, even as Group B, if I'm remembering right. So, Group A goes out first, and then the top 4 from Group A are selected. Then Group B goes out. Let me start this again. So, Group A goes out first, they do their qualifying laps. Then, once they're all back in, Group B goes out, they do their laps, come back in. After they've all gone out, the top 4 from each group are selected to go into what are called the duels. And the duels is a head-to-head knockout one-lap qualifying tournament. And so, the way it works, I forget the exact timing on it, but everyone is paired up with another driver, and one driver gets sent out, and then something like 30 seconds later, the next one gets sent out. Then you get a side-by-side split screen of them both doing a single hot lap on the track with near identical conditions, and whoever has the better lap of those two goes into the next round of it.
Why do they even have racing? It just sounds like perfect racing.
That's the thing. This format has led to, like, single thousandth of a second's difference in pole time regularly. It is.
That actually sounds like an amazing racing series. Like, even without the actual racing, this could be the racing series, and I'd be very happy with it.
Like, Formula E qualifying is genuinely incredibly entertaining just because of this. Especially because since the groups are decided based on grid position, and in Formula E, points are on offer for pole. You get three points for taking pole.
You know what, Eli? I think that's how it should be in every series. Like, you always want to get pole, but how much more, like, amazing would qualifying be if you knew this was actually for championship points?
Yeah, well, like, especially with this format, pole, being on the front row is basically worth the same amount, regardless of which side you're on, generally. Like, there's a bit of a difference, but not really. And there are a lot of tracks where actually starting second's better. So, like, you do a knockout tournament like this, if you got through into the final round, what reason do you have to push? Well,
yeah,
3 points is a lot.
Totally.
But what makes it really interesting is the way it's set up, since it's based on the championship order, means it is not uncommon for teammates to have to knock each other out in the duel.
As it should.
Yeah. Like, sometimes the championship can be decided just based on polls. And, like, it is great.
I'm gonna say this really quick. Listeners, when I would play with Hot Wheels as a kid, I always awarded points for pole because that's how it should be.
Yeah. It is one of the most important parts of the weekend. It is one of the most impressive things, and I think that Formula E, it wouldn't work for every series, but I think Formula E's qualifying format is my favorite of any series that I know of.
No, totally. I think for me, just because they award points is enough for me to love it.
Well, also, like, one thing that people always talk about, and, like, I would love it too in Formula 1, is single lap qualifying. Like, one-shot qualifying.
Yeah, like NASCAR used to have. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, a lot of time the excuse is that it would take too long. Except Formula E, the way they do it, has demonstrated, no, it doesn't have to. Because the thing is, Formula E has one-shot qualifying, but there will be 4 cars on the track at a time. Because you'll send out the first 2 cars, and then once the second car passes the start line to start their flying lap, they send out the next 2 cars behind them on their warm-up laps.
Uh-huh.
So that means that they're always having the cars cycling through, but they're never so close together that they'll get in each other's way.
So you do it.
Yeah, like, if F1 wanted to try one-shot qualifying, there you go, that's all you gotta do. But F1 hates using it, admitting that another series had a good idea before it, so they'll never do that. Well, they'll do it, but it'll just be 10 years from now, like they've done to Push to Pass, and they'll somehow find a way to name it Mother.
I just that is so funny. Like when IndyCar beat them to the aero screen, and F1 was talking about like how making aero screens is now impossible for their cars because of technical regulations. It's very possible. They're just butthurt.
I do think. I think aero screens would need to be added at the beginning of a regulation cycle, not middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that when the Halo was originally introduced, not doing aero screens was a good idea. The fact that the 26 regulations are still just the Halo is kind of dumb, though.
Once again, we could still have a Felipe Massa incident. The aero screen is amazing, but it's not as amazing as an aero screen.
Yeah. But anyway, now let's get into the actual Formula E race. So, Cassidy, if he won both of these races, could have sealed up the championship this weekend. I forget what the exact places that his opponents would have had to have finished was, but he was pretty well clear in the lead. He was like 40 points or so in the lead going into this weekend. And Jaguar, team he drives for, also could have sealed the Constructors' Championship this weekend. Spoiler alert, neither of those things happen. But this race shows both why I love Formula E and Cassidy so much, but also kind of shows just how quickly things can change in Formula E. Part of what I love about Cassidy is that he is a very... He wins races based on controlling the entire race. Not dominating it, but just knowing exactly where he needs to be, exactly when he needs to be there. So, with the pack racing in Formula E, it's worth noting, I didn't mention this earlier, in Formula E, they are given enough charge to finish the race, nothing else. So energy conservation is a massive part of the strategy. Cassidy is somewhat known for dropping to the middle or even the back of the pack in the first 2/3 of the race to conserve energy. So, in race 1, Cassidy sits between 10th and 15th up until I believe it was lap 18. At which point, in 2 laps, he takes the lead of the race. He makes up like 10 plus positions in 2 laps, with 6 of those being in one corner.
Wow.
That's why I love Portland, because that's a thing that can happen.
So, why didn't Jaguar or Cassidy seal the championships?
Yeah, so we're going to get to that now. Glad you asked that. So, at a point earlier in the race, his teammate Mitch Evans had a little bit of contact with... crap, I forget which car it was and I forgot to write it down. He had a bit of a contact with another car and got a 5-second penalty for it. And he was running second when Cassidy took the lead. Was in the lead. And instead of doing the sensible thing and giving team orders, like Jaguar giving team orders to have Evans go in front of Cassidy, thus giving Cassidy the slipstream, making him more power efficient, and giving Evans a chance to build a larger gap for that penalty to not matter as much. No, they instead told them to fight each other and didn't inform Cassidy about the penalty.
So they had a Ferrari moment?
So Cassidy is having to defend from his own teammate, and goes a bit too tight in one of the corners, clips the grass, and spins. Because he's defending from his own teammate on the second to last lap, his teammate has a 5-second penalty.
How nice.
Yep, it came out after the race. The reason they did that is because they wanted to protest the penalty.
So the best way to do that is make sure you don't win the Constructors' Championship.
Yeah. What they were worried about was that they would swap the cars. Because, admittedly, the incident that got him a penalty, it was tiny. And it probably shouldn't have, but technically it was a rules violation. So it wasn't going to get overturned. But most of the time it wouldn't have been penalized. But, yeah. What they were worried about is that they were going to protest it. They were going to give team orders to swap the cars, protest the penalty, have the penalty removed, and then suddenly those team orders cost Cassidy the win. So instead, they told them to fight, costing Cassidy the win. Yeah.
Suddenly, Jaguar just like slowly becomes a prancing horse.
It was, and because like the packs in Formula E are ridiculously tight, so any penalty is huge. Pull up the results. Because of this, Mitch Evans, who, mind you, is the driver who started on pole and was first across the line, ends the race in 8th, and Cassidy is out of the points. Which means Jaguar took a whole whopping 8 points across the weekend. Not across the weekend, but for the race.
Ouchies. Now, are they still in the lead in both?
Oh, yeah, no. Drivers' Championship 1-2 is Cassidy Evans. Constructors' Championship. Jaguar is, since, like, halfway through Gen 2, like, they are the best drivetrain manufacturer that Formula E has.
So that's why they got their own SUV series.
The Jags are, like, Jaguar and... Because Envision also runs Jaguar motors.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. The thing with them is they're just as powerful as everyone else, but they're also insanely efficient.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so, I mean, there's so many ways to make a good electric motor.
Yeah, like that's the thing, is they are one of the best on pace, and they are the best on power efficiency. So it's just like, they're good. So, like, it's not a huge surprise. Like, Cassidy still is very likely to win this championship, especially because he is insanely good in London. So, like, it's not a huge deal. However, Cassidy gets crashed out in race 2.
Oh no.
Yeah. Race 2 ends up just... I do not... Usually what happens in Formula E is the first race of a doubleheader is the chaotic mess one. The second race, they've had a bit more time to bed in, so it tends to be a bit calmer, a bit more running. Not this weekend. Not this weekend. Lap 8, JQ's running in the lead for McLaren. Or no. Sorry, my notes are a bit messed up. Lap 7, Pascal Wehrlein for Porsche clips something, breaks his, like, goes off track, breaks his front wing. It starts to get caught under his front wheels, which, means you lose steering. And because of the way these cars are made, it does not come unstuck on its own. Well, instead, he stays out, it flies off, smacks the front wing of Sam Bird, causing Sam Bird to his front wing to break, locking his up underneath of his front wheels, causing him to just go spearing off the track. So lap 7, Sam Bird's race ruined. Lap 8, Hughes, the other McLaren, manages to nearly spin going into turn 1, dropping from first to third. Laps 9, Sebastian Buemi from Vision drops from first to seventh. And then lap 11 it's about halfway through the race. So remember how I mentioned that Cassidy being really strategic about his racing? He's sitting in
Yeah.
like 14th, 15th at this point. And this is when he's like, okay, I've done all of my power saving, so this is where I can start going back up the field to be in position to push flat out. So then the next lap, Jake Hughes. What the heck?
What the Hughes?
No, sorry, YouTube just messed up for a second. We're still live. Okay, good. Got an error from YouTube for a second, so. But anyway. So yeah, lap 12, Hughes loses half of his front wing. Mind you, again, there were no safety cars, no virtual safety cars. There was like a couple of spins in the first race. We're not even halfway through the second one.
Oh no.
Yeah. Then we go from lap 12 to lap 17. Bird is in 18th. Hughes spins and is now in last. And then Cassidy gets into an incident with an Andretti. Basically, going into turn 1. At the end of this lap, we see Cassidy pit with a damaged front wing, and we don't know why. Well, they go back, they look at the onboards, and going into turn 1, one of the Andrettis dive bombs him, and there is a wall right across the apex of the corner. So the Andretti dive bombs him, going into the apex, then cuts directly in front of him in the braking zone. Cassidy had clean air in front of him. So he's braking like there's clean air. Then suddenly the Andretti's there. Instead of like keeping to the inside, no, decided to swing mid-braking defensively in front of him, causing Cassidy to hit his back, breaking his front wing. So that's how Cassidy ends up not being a factor for the rest of the race.
You gotta love it.
Yeah. So lap 19, there's a safety car. Not for any specific incident, but just because there have been so many incidents that there is so much carbon fiber littered in various parts of the track that they can't clean it all up anymore.
Wow.
Yeah. That's the thing. This was not for anything in particular. The race director was just like trying to direct the marshals where was safe to pick up stuff, and just realized there is carbon fiber that needs cleaned up literally everywhere. So the safety car only lasts like one lap, but it was still necessary. But yeah, and then for the rest of the race, nothing really happens. And then we end up with Anthony Felix da Costa taking his third win in a row after having a really bad season up to this point. And he takes that over Frines, and followed by Jake Evans. Jake Evans? Mitch Evans? Michael Evans? Why can I not remember his name? Holy crap.
Chris Evans?
Why in the world did his name just abandon my head? I've said it like 6 times already.
Chris Evans, obviously.
He is a Kiwi, not a Australian.
And he's on your left.
Fun fact, both of the Jaguar drivers are Kiwis.
Sounds like if you're a Kiwi, you're really good at driving.
In Formula E, at least. Yeah.
Scott McLaughlin's a Kiwi, Shane Van Gisbergen's a Kiwi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kiwis are just built different. They're built to race.
Yeah. I cannot pull it. Right, I cannot remember his first name for the life of me. What the heck? But anyway, Evans in third, Cassidy out of the points again. But that results in going into the last 2 rounds of the championship, Nick Cassidy leading it with 167 points. Mind you, again, there were 50 points on offer this weekend. There was more than 50. Or is it 2 for fastest lap? I can't remember. But 3 for both poles. and 24 points per race. It's one for fastest lap now. But anyway, and again, DaCosta took 48 of those points. Like, Cassidy scored no points this weekend. And he still leads by 12 points in the championship.
And how many races are there left to go?
2. A doubleheader in London.
I seriously hope he does it for you.
Yep. But yeah, so it's Cassidy leading with 167.
That would really...
Followed by Evans with 155, who is tied with Pascal Wehrlein on 155.
That would be the worst thing ever if you go into the last 4 races of the season with a 50-point lead. And you come out behind.
Yeah. So then you have DaCosta at 134 and Roland at 131. With there being, let me remember, 24, 27, 28, 40, 56. Am I doing my math right there? Yeah. So there are 56 points on offer in the last race. In the last
56
weekend.
points.
Yep. So...
You know who was an FE champion was Nick DeVries, best driver ever.
He actually was running in a podium position for like 2 seconds of the first race.
Wait, Nick DeVries is still an FE?
He returned to it.
I didn't know any of that.
Yeah, he is not racing for a great team because he's not exactly a hot commodity. For everybody who was praising Nick DeVries as an FE champion, he did not deserve that championship. But that'll be
He's an
a
FE
conversation
and an
for another time.
He's an FE and an F2 champion. He's obviously the best in the world. He's at least as good as Teo Percher. And honestly, I think Nick DeVries should be driving that McLaren.
Yeah. If my math is right, everyone down to P7 in the championship could technically win next weekend. Now, for P7 to win, everyone in front of him would have to DNF, but it is possible. Mind you, that's DNF for both races.
Some real crazy crap is about to happen.
There are 7 championship contenders going into the last 2 rounds.
Good racing.
This is why I love Formula E. The racing is chaos and beautiful.
I'm glad that we could have our respective, our respective second favorite series star this week. And we can just tongue bathe them.
It was a good weekend.
It really was. Because not only did that happen, but yeah, I mean, NASCAR and F1 were both really good. And, IndyCar did not race this weekend, correct?
Nope. But next weekend we do get them with the new hybrids.
We have to cover that.
Oh yeah, no, that is, of all of the races, that is the one that is a guaranteed cover for next week. The others might switch around. Maybe it'll be MotoGP, maybe it'll be NASCAR, maybe it'll be F1 at Silverstone, depending on how each of those races go. But, we gotta cover the debut of the hybrids.
Yeah, whoever stars besides IndyCar, in these hypothetical scenarios, if SVG wins NASCAR, we have to do NASCAR. If there's another McLaren Max Verstappen controversy, we might do F1. And if Marc Marquez wins MotoGP, I'll push for that because that'd be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, we might just have to do another super episode next week anyway, so who knows?
Yeah. But yeah, this will just be a super episode podcast.
I mean, hey. It's not like we don't spend another hour or
So
two talking about this after the podcast ends anyway.
we literally talk about it until we are so tired we're about to die.
Yep. But you mentioned Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. So it's time to get on to our third series of the weekend. To start off
already
the discussion of Austria, I just want to talk about one thing first. Then I'll turn it over to you. What the heck is with everyone pretending like this is the greatest race that ever happened?
Obviously it is.
Even the commentator said, when the incident that we will get to later happened, I'm sure you don't remember any of the middle of this race, but at least this part's great.
It's so true.
Yeah. Anyway, you want to go ahead and take us through the weekend?
Yeah, sure. Oh, wait. Oh, rats. All right, I will take you through the weekend. I'm going to fill space really quick because I'm going to open my F1 app so I can give you accurate results. The race, of course, was won by Toto Wolff, and in second place was Oscar Pastry, and in third was Sainz, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Carlos Sainz. All right. DHL fastest lap would go to Fernando Alonso. Fastest pit stop, Ferrari. Driver of the day, Lando Norris. We can talk.
Bull.
So, yeah, Verstappen on pole. Norris was going to start alongside him. Perez got to 8th. Can you believe that?
Oh, God, I can't.
How about that?
Through. I have opinions on Checo. He was beat by a Haas on pace. And was being challenged by another.
I seriously don't know. Actually, I think we do because Perez can win. I was going to say, like, is the Red Bull that good? Or is Max Verstappen that good? But at the same time, if Perez actually amps it up, he's really good. He just gets into slumps a lot. Like every week, a lot. But yeah, like every car that can beat Checo can. Like every McLaren,
and
Ferrari, Merc beat him in qualifying. Yep. I mean, Nico Hulkenberg was a 10th off. That's it.
He was beat by one Haas on merit and was being challenged by another.
What do you do? He's obviously a driver who should sign for another year. God. Max Verstappen wins the sprint race, followed by Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. And he won, of course, the sprint qualifying pole, one from pole there. And it looked like that Max Verstappen was going to win this.
Before we talk about the main race, can we talk a little bit about Lando and Oscar trying to murder each other in the sprint?
Sure. Why not? We were talking about MotoGP earlier. Let's talk about more people dying in motorsports.
I don't know what McLaren's strategy here is with, like, in races, they are so quick to give out team orders. The second it turns into a sprint, they're like, no, kill each other.
But enough about the Zach Brown band.
It's hilarious. It's like, the second that Lando is behind Piastri in a race, they're like, Piastri, let Lando by. In a sprint, it's like, no, kill him, spit him, take out his tires, eat him alive, do whatever you want and need to win. It's just a completely different attitude.
You know what they should do is they should put Nolan Siegel in that second McLaren seat.
Oh, God. We'll be talking more about McLaren's issues with driver lineups in IndyCar again in a little bit, I'm sure.
There's a lot of them. Yeah, the spoilers. They're going to clone Logan Siegel and put him in Alexander Rossi's seat. Literally, I'm not lying. They're cloning Nolan Siegel. It's pretty crazy.
If they could, they probably would.
If they could clone Nolan Siegel, they could clone all the money that his parents are giving them. They would totally do it. I'm sure they're counterfeiting somewhere. But yeah, so besides more deaths in motorsport, we're just gonna go on to another death in motorsport that almost happened. So for most of the race, it looked like it was going to be another classic Max Verstappen win. He was probably going to win by like 10 seconds over Lando Norris in second, dominating most of the race, besides maybe some early racing that was maybe good. I forget. I know some Alpines were going at it.
The Alpine racing was incredible.
Yeah, definitely.
Gasly should have been driver of the day, or Hulkenberg, or K-Mag. Anyone other than who it was.
Perez, obviously.
I was about to say there were two drivers that shouldn't have been driver of the day. There were three drivers that shouldn't have been driver of the day. Two of them drove Red Bulls, the others...
If your name is...
Lando Norris.
Yeah. But, so yeah, for most of the race, like the commentators were saying, it was just another good old Max win, and everyone's going to be happy, and I was probably going to start stress eating something sweet, because... I don't know. I love racing so much, but it does, I'm continuing... Alright, all summer I'm going to be pessimistic about F1, and the fact that Max Verstappen is probably going to be the favorite going into each and every race until we finally get to Italy. But a certain driver of the day decided to make that not the case, and decided to make something interesting happen.
Well, to be fair, first Max's own team decided to make that not the case.
You're right. So Red Bull decided that the gap was maybe a little too big to Lando Norris. Like, the winning was fun, but they're like, we got to get these TV ratings up. So they have a 4-second slow pit stop, and that allows Lando Norris, who had a really good pit stop, to catch up, close within, I think it was under 2 seconds, or under a second.
It was like 1.8, and then Lando had new tires, whereas Max was on used, so he was within a second a couple of laps.
Yeah. So it got exciting really quick, and then a dive bomb started happening. So call Lando Norris Hiroshima, because you really like sending those bombs. But yeah, so he tried a couple of times, and as I go about this battle, I want to go with Jolyon Palmer's analysis, if that's okay. Is that okay? Eli, are you live?
Sure, let's just talk about another terrible opinion.
No, yeah, well, it's not like we're agreeing with this opinion, but I totally want to do Jolyon Palmer's analysis. And actually, Jolyon Palmer's analysis is so bad, I don't even think it's on the website anymore. It was on this morning when I read it, but I think they already took it down. I think they already took down Jolyon Palmer's analysis.
I will say, I normally think some of the accusations against FOM and British bias and all that stuff is nonsense, but holy crap was it out this weekend.
They literally took down... They took it down, Eli. They actually took down Jolyon Palmer's analysis. Oh, well. So I'll try my best to remember what happened in the race and go dive bomb by dive bomb.
I have notes on it if you want me to do it.
Please, yeah, so go, and we'll discuss each dive bomb and see if the British bias was warranted.
Right, so, basically, after a few laps, when Lando is using his fresher tires to close in on Max, he gets within DRS range, and then immediately tries to send it into turn 1. In an identical way that he did try to make a move on Max in the sprint race. Max, knowing that, moves at almost the same time. And then Lando immediately gets on the radio and accuses him of moving under braking. Like, instantly.
So, Jolyon Palmer's analysis of this one was that Max Verstappen did not... So, Jolyon Palmer said the way to allow for this racing is to give the the person attempting to pass to give them plenty of room, break earlier than them so you can do the undercut. But he said he didn't like the way Max did it because Max went to the left too quickly. Basically, he almost shut the door / opened the door way too late in the pass. So Julian Palmer did not like this on Max's part.
Mind you, Max was ahead the entire time on this one. At no point did Lando even come alongside.
I was thinking about that, and when we get to the second dive bomb, I actually start agreeing a bit with Julian Palmer, but with this one, I almost feel like there was no real sense in analyzing it. It was kind of like a failed dive bomb attempt, and
the first one was Max.
Could Max have?
Like, Max just read him perfectly and defended exactly how, like, the best possible way. This one should not be a conversation.
Yeah, I'm not sure why Julian Palmer decided that you need to give more space to the person dive bombing than what Max already gave him, or specifically that Max Verstappen got out of the way too late. Like, he was discussing how it was very aggressive driving.
A lot of British fans were talking about basically just saying, why didn't Max just let him pass? This one was literally just, Lando tried that move the day before, so Max knew he was going to try it again, so he didn't even give there a window for that to be done. The only reason anyone said anything about this is because Lando immediately got on the radio and complained about it. If Lando doesn't say that on the radio, no one talks about this one.
Well, thankfully there's no British bias.
We'll get into that when we talk about a certain Stewart decision later, and what they publicly admitted.
Alright, you want to go to the second dive bomb attempt?
Yeah, so then, the second dive bomb attempt was directly the next lap. It's the one after that that's a couple laps later. So yeah, they go around again, and then Lando sends it, again, slightly closer this time, manages to get his... This was the one where he got his front wheels alongside Max's... this was the one where he technically got ahead at the apex. Wasn't it?
Yeah, so I think the second one was when Lando actually, like, he dive bombed perfectly. Like, he was able to keep it on his own line and not lock up. This was the one, though, where Max Verstappen ran off the track and kept the position. But Julian Palmer's analysis...
No, that's the fourth
And this is when I start... Wait, there was more than 3 dive bombs?
Yeah.
So Julian Palmer completely missed the opportunity for a fourth British bias statement?
I'm guessing because this one was so bad that he didn't actually want to talk about it. So this one, what happened is Lando barely got... And looking at the replays and looking at the cameras, it doesn't actually look like he was ahead. It doesn't even look like his front tires were equal with Max's. And so Max just cuts straight across the front, taking the line, pinning him to the inside. And then Lando tries to claim that he was ahead and was entitled to space.
So this isn't where Max runs off the track?
No, because then there's the next one, which is the one where Lando... There's the next one, which is the one that leads to a lot of controversy later. Because then there's a couple of laps of cooling off as they reset, because Lando broke too hard, and that led to Max building up a bit of a gap again. So Lando has to spend a couple of laps recharging and closing back in. And Lando pushes too hard in those couple of laps and gets a couple of track limit warnings, getting him a black and white flag. And then we get the third dive bomb, where Lando completely sends it off the track and was nowhere close to ever making the corner. And then tries to blame Max for pushing him off. Mind you, Lando sent this from the inside, and he ended up off on the outside of the corner. How in the world does the car on the outside of you push you to the outside?
I don't know because Julian Palmer didn't discuss this one.
It's because it was a bad move from Lando. That's the thing. Nobody talks about the stupid crap that Lando was pulling for half of these incidents. Everyone just talks about how bad Max was.
Well, I think it's because in the final incident, Max was at fault, and I agree with that overall. I think it was more racing incident overall, but if I had to put blame on someone, I wish Max gave him just a bit more room because Lando was trying not to brake on the curbs.
It was 100% a racing incident. Which is why we'll get into what annoys me about what the steward said later. But, yeah. The reason that this particular incident annoys me is because Lando went off track, and he did two things doing that. One, he finished the overtake off track. He was ahead. But he also realized that there was no arguing that he could keep that position, so he swapped back. But the other thing is, he has a black and white flag. One more and he gets a track limits penalty. Which is what he just did. It takes 7 more laps for them to give him that penalty. That becomes relevant in a little bit. Then we get the fourth incident.
IndyCar?
Then we get the fourth incident, which is the one you were talking about, where Max goes off track.
I was going to say, this was the one, Julian Palmer, where I may have agreed where Lando was ahead at the corner. And this is where actually Lando did take a good line. Like, he didn't lock up the brakes. He dove bomb really well. He kept to the inside. And yeah, Max did totally go around the outside off the track to keep the position. And I actually think,
To be fair to Max,
Lando was ahead at the corner.
To be fair to Max in this incident, though, if he had held his line and stayed on track, they would have crashed here. And it wouldn't have been a puncture. It would have been a crash.
True. But at the same time, if we're going to align it to both of them would have crashed, I do think, I think Lando should have gotten that place. I think he should have gotten the place. I feel like there was a way to go around Lando and not go 3 car lengths off.
Here's the thing.
Over the corner.
The problem with that is basically there is no way for Max to safely get out of that situation without going off track. Which means that if he had let Lando have that position, there would have been an argument for Lando overtaking and forcing another driver off the track. Because Max could have kept it closer. Max could have kept it closer to being on track, but he would have still been fully on the curb over the white line.
I really want to rewatch it. When I saw it, I thought to myself, Max could have done that and not have to run so wide off the track.
Max definitely did some showmanship there.
Yeah, I agree. I think Max didn't have to run super. I honestly think, like I said, I think Max could have even kept it to the curb, a little off the curb, and didn't have to go that far off. And that's why I think maybe he should have,
But
if he was just going to do all that anyway.
He would have still been over the white line. That's the key thing there. It would have still been
maybe
a forcing another driver off the track situation, which would have made it an illegal overtake. That's the risk that you get when you dive bomb. That's the thing, is if you don't go side by side through the corner, but instead dive bomb, you are always risking that the driver you're trying to overtake, especially when you dive bomb on the inside like Lando was trying, Because, mind you, that's something that we haven't talked about at all. Lando realized that Max knew what he was doing whenever Max was able to read him on the first time he tried to go around the outside. So he starts trying to go up the inside. But, like, that's the risk you take there. Is if the dive bomb... You kind of can't have the dive bomb happen at the apex, because then the other guy doesn't really have enough time to react to you safely. So they kind of just gotta do something.
Eli, you're gonna have to entitle this Le Mans safety car special too, because I was just thinking, like, Max totally could have kept the position if he went to the outside and did the undercut, the under and over on Lando. He totally could have done that. So no, I still think, like, he didn't have to do what he did. And actually what he did was probably the lesser of two options.
My
to
point
keep the
is,
position.
he was not required to. Because
Not required to...
you have to remember, it's on the driver who is on the inside at the apex to not force the outside driver off. Not the outside driver to stay on.
Well, Lando didn't really force him off. Like, once again, like, Max, if Max was reading him so perfectly, Max totally could have done option A, but he decided to go really far away outside the track.
That's the problem.
Well, isn't that his fault?
No. Because...
yeah, no, it's totally his fault.
He had no way of knowing where Lando was going to be at that point. Max is committed to his line. The thing is, Max is committed to a line at a certain angle and a certain speed. By Lando coming in like that, that means Max's choices are find some way to open up this line.
No, and honestly, by the way, listeners, I probably would have done what Max did, but there's a better way to do this. No, I'm still sticking with it because Lando did the same move 4 times. It's not like we're discussing the outside move. Like, Lando had become super
each time Lando's done a different move. That's the thing. Lando's done this a different way each time. No, it's been different lines.
It's the inside line.
The first time he goes for a wide outside line. The second time he goes for a tighter inside line. This time, then the next 2 times, he goes for a more straight line, inside line, trying to cut directly to the outside. Trying to pin Max, forcing Max to brake more. The problem with that line is it only really works if you're ahead enough that the other driver knows they need to start braking more. The problem is almost that Lando timed it too perfectly that Max didn't have time to think or react or do literally anything other than just not crash into Lando.
So just racing incident, who cares?
Yeah, like that's the thing. That's the big thing with most of these incidents. In fact, all of them. They were racing incidents.
I really want to see this dive bomb again. Like, I listen, and at the end of the day, it's a racing incident, honestly. But when I saw that, I'm like, Max did not have to go that far off. Like, I really wish I could. Like, I'm not finding any footage of this. And like, when I saw this, I'm like, I feel like Max could have even kept it on the curb. That's and yeah, that's why I was like, I might even be tempted to agree with Jolyon Palmer. And and by the way, guys, this idea in my head was planted by Jolyon Palmer. But yeah, Jolyon Palmer's analysis of that move in specific was that Lando deserved that position. And when I saw the video, which is no longer an F1, I was like, I guess he's right. I guess Max did have enough room to keep it on track. But now I can't see the video.
A problem I frequently have with things that Jolyon Palmer says is that he talks about incidents like the drivers have, a minute to think about what's going on. Like, they have time to sit and analyze this, and not like what they're having is, I'm either going to crash in the next millisecond or I go there.
Well, I always listen to Julian Palmer because he's one of the best Formula One racers of all time. Easily. He's in the GOAT discussion.
And that's something he got reminded of in the commentary booth this weekend. Did you catch that bit of commentary that got mentioned?
Absolutely. No, I didn't read it. I didn't watch this race, so I didn't read anything about that.
Oh, yeah, so what happened? I think it was Coulthard mentioned that year was... Here's the thing. He wasn't trying to be mean about it, and he was very specifically not mentioning 2016. But he said, this has been the worst start that the Renault team has had since they've been whatever the team was in the 80s to a season. To which Palmer stops for a second and went, really? Not even 2016 when I was driving for them?
Oh no.
Man threw himself under the bus that hard.
Oh well. But I feel like what we can learn from this is, totally. I'm arguing for fun. This was all racing stuff.
No.
Like, people are making too big of a deal about it. It's like, you know what? If F1 wasn't so boring, people wouldn't be making such a big deal about it. But now they have something to talk about. They're like, blah!
Well, the thing I hate about it is that everybody's like, where's all the good racing? What happened to all of that? And then the second we actually get it, everybody's like, oh no, you need to crucify Verstappen.
Precisely. Why can't they just appreciate, why can't they just appreciate finally having, some really good battles for the lead?
That's the thing. I love this. It was great. It was good racing. They were fighting. They were trying. They actually wanted it. And another thing that drives me crazy is that we're still not even gotten to the actual accident where they make contact. But, people were asking, why didn't Max just give Lando the win?
I would only ever ask, why didn't he give Lando a couple more millimeters? I am definitely on the side of he should have just... No, I agree. That's the worst. I am reading people are like, why didn't he just give Lando the position? Obviously, he totally could have caught up with Lando. No, Lando had better tires. Lando was catching him lap after lap. If he gave Lando the place, that very well could have been the win.
No, that's not even what I'm talking about. There were people asking, why does he need the win? They're talking about it like Max is running away with the championship like he did last year. We're about halfway through the year, and Lando is only, he is now about 70 points off of Max. At this point, mind you, it was a whole lot closer because Max had, 12, I think, less points. And Lando obviously didn't end up getting any. But, people were straight up, it's like, well, I don't know, maybe because McLaren is resurgent and having a really good time of it, and Max is not running away with the championship. It's like, there is a real possibility, especially if Max has, say, reliability. We already know at some point this season, Max is going to have to take an engine penalty. This isn't going to be like the previous years where he could just jump to the front of the pack. He's going to have to fight to get there. And he is probably not going to win that race. Wins mean something this year for Max. There is a chance he does not win this championship without trying, and people were acting like he should have just let Lando have the win.
Obviously, I mean, that's how all the great battles happen, is you let your competitor catch up to second, and then you fight them.
Yeah, it's just... God. Anyway, should we get into the incident?
Oh, man, honestly, I don't have much to say. All I have to say is, it would have been better if honestly, I get why Lando didn't want to break on the curbs. I maybe wouldn't have either, but Max was doing it earlier, so I wish they just both gave each other a millimeter. If they had given each other exactly 1 inch, it would have been fine.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is a couple. I say a couple. It's like 4 laps after the last incident we talked about, and I think if I kept track right, 7 laps since the one where Lando went off track. Uh, Lando decides to try for the outside again. Max realizes he's setting up for that, defends late, and then in the turn starts drifting wide while Lando's starting to tighten up. They bump wheels, causing both of them to get a puncture, and Lando gets some damage to his front wing. This results in Max having to pit, get his tires changed. Lando pits, McLaren replaces his front wing and his tire, and then seemingly without being told to retire the car, Lando jumps out and decides to quit. I still don't know the full
Oh, really?
story
I didn't know
about
that.
Yeah, like, you know how normally they wheel the car in and then the driver gets out? Lando
Yeah.
hopped out while it was still in the pit lane, still on the jacks, and they were still changing the tires. Maybe there was something else that they saw, and, like, that's why they decided to retire it. But as far as I can tell, it was just wing damage and the tire problem. And McLaren were not the ones that made the call to retire from the race.
Never quit, my guy. Never quit.
That's the thing. Max still finishes this race in 5th. Like, Lando still would have gotten points, which is why I have to assume that there was something else, and, like, I don't want to say Lando just had a tantrum and gave up. But as far as I can tell, that's what happened. Because McLaren never released, as far as I've been able to find, never released a statement as to why they retired the car.
Well, maybe they knew if they did, they'd get plenty of media bias, and that's exactly what happened.
Maybe. But yeah. Yeah, that's...
That, I mean, if we're talking about the same team that literally replaced a 20-year-old with a 19-year-old because they're like, we need to think about the future of our team.
Yeah, fair enough. But, yeah, so basically, that ends up happening. And it is a racing incident. It is... Lando
100%,
wanted...
100%.
Yeah, like, Lando wanted to take the wide outside line and tighten to try and pin Max to the inside, whereas Max wanted to take a tight inside line that opens up to try and pin Lando to the outside. And it caused them to come together wheel to wheel. And honestly, a lot of times contact like that, the tires wouldn't even have burst. Like, we see incidents like that all the time, and we don't see punctures. Like, if Lando had been, like, a couple inches farther forward, it would have been tire to tire instead of tire to wing, and none of us would be talking about this.
Yeah. Obviously, a good defense as to why Max should have given him the position.
Well, that's the thing I want to talk about. Because you remember I made a big deal about the fact that there were 2 things that Lando could have been penalized for whenever he went off track. One was if he had kept the position, it would have been an illegal overtake. The other is, he did that when he had a black and white flag. So immediately after this incident, the stewards finally decide, oh yeah, by the way, Lando's supposed to have a 5-second penalty that we should have given him 8 laps ago. There were like 6 laps left in the race at this point. If the stewards had given Lando that penalty within the lap like they should have, and then this happens, Max just lets him by and then hangs on to him in DRS.
What are they? IndyCar?
That's the, like, Max is a strategic racer at the end of the day. Like, he's aggressive, but, like, He is perfectly happy to win on strategy. Like, if Lando was given a 5-second penalty and was racing him that hard, Max would have realized it would be a better idea. Just let Lando by. Stick within a second of him and keep the DRS for a couple of laps, and then just win the race on countback.
I guess we'll never know. Oh,
Yep.
speaking of British bias, George Russell won, guys.
And he about ripped out Toto's throat.
You know, I feel bad for Toto Wolff. I get that it wasn't the best time to call George, but
Oh, it was a god-awful
Toto was
time,
so
but
hard
it's...
on himself. I
The whole thing is
sympathize.
hilarious.
I sympathize because I read a comment and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't think about that. Toto hasn't experienced a Mercedes win since 2021 because he wasn't there when George won in Brazil in 20. Like, this man
It was his first moment
had
of
to be
joy
the most
in
exciting man
like
the
4
paddock has seen this
years.
year. Okay, and if I see that, I think I would have done the same thing. I don't care where my driver is. I'm like, you can win this. We're gonna win this.
Now imagine how bad he would have felt if him saying that caused George to crash.
Oh my gosh. He already got enough flack. Like, if that happened.
The thing is, Toto totally deserves the flack, but I also get it.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
Because, like,
I would have done the same thing.
like, there was, based on where George was, like, that could have actually cost him the win. Like, if it just,
Yeah, go in the gravel trap.
if it just been, like, a split second later, that could have caused George to go off, go in the gravel track, and lose the win.
That
Also-
was the most embarrassing thing I've ever done in Formula One.
To be fair, it was.
And
Like, it genuinely, I genuinely, like, even thinking about, like, all of the stupid stuff that happened in 2021, none of it was embarrassing. Like, that's
Toto was just in 100%. Toto was in proud dad mode, and like his son was trying to run for a touchdown. And he's like, "You could do this, Georgia."
Yeah, that's the thing, is, like, there are plenty of things, other things Toto has done, but, like, this is the one that's genuinely just kind of embarrassing and nothing else. Like, there's nothing strong, there's no strong feelings about it, it's just, like, kind of sad.
You know what? George won. Toto won. He's happy. We'll just forget about it.
No, we won't, because it's, honestly, it's kind of nice to see Toto be a human for 5 seconds. This, for the first time, I think, ever,
No, it's nice to see.
this makes me kind of like Toto.
No, I think it's because it's the human condition. There is not a person who would have been in his circumstance who hadn't seen a team win in that long, and not just any team member, but the team member he hasn't gotten to win with. Like, we all would have done the same thing, probably.
Yep.
Like, not even check where our driver is, but just be like, oh my gosh, you can win. We can do this.
That's my favorite thing, is it was like, it was instant. He was immediately on the button, like, you go!
No, I really did like. I like that.
Yep. But anyway, then for, like, we completely forgot to talk about what actually happened with the Alpines.
Oh, I didn't know there was more.
I mean, we talked about them racing each other. You only watched the highlights, didn't you?
Yeah.
Then you probably didn't see this. Yeah, no, Gasly and Ocon were, like, side by side for, like, half a lap. Trading positions. And somehow it was cleaner than Max and Norris.
I was gonna say, and they didn't murder each other.
Trust me, Ocon wanted to.
Like,
It
I was about to say, like,
Gasly.
Ocon is in the best. Ocon was in the best position of his life. Like, it doesn't matter if the team fires him; they already did. Like,
yeah, the thing that helps is that Gasly was the aggressor for most of it, and he is the less murderous of the two. But yeah. So, the final results of the race were Russell wins, followed by Piastri, Sainz, Hamilton in fourth, Max in fifth. And then, this is where it gets really fun. Hulkenberg in sixth, followed by Sergio Perez, followed by K-Mag, followed by Danny Rick, and then Gasly in 10th.
Hey, Danny Rick got points.
Yes, he did. Nearly as many as Checo.
Honestly, just put Danny Rick in the seat.
He can't be worse. That's the biggest thing. Putting anyone else in that seat would not be worse.
And how good would it be for Red Bull PR or press to just put Danny Rick in there?
Well, I want you to imagine another version of this Austrian Grand Prix, where Max has a teammate that is even vaguely near his pace. And as such, Lando has to be worried that if he makes a mistake, the Red Bull behind him will catch up. Nothing else.
That never happened.
Yeah, like, Max does not have a rear gunner. Russell couldn't push to gain on Norris because he was defending against Piastri the entire time. Max does not have that because his teammate is battling a Haas and losing.
It was funny, Eli, is I saw a picture of them being like, oh yeah, like look at the damage to Perez's side pod. That totally obstructed his pace.
Why'd he get that damage?
And also the damage is literally just a puncture the size of a quarter.
Did he maybe get that damage because he was in the midfield battling a Haas? Because I think he got that damage because he qualified in the midfield.
No. Not that. He would never.
Yeah, so short version of this. Why in the... I hate Lando Norris fans. They're the worst. They're nearly as bad as Hamilton fans.
Why the... You're going to have... I know, that I have friends who are Lando Norris fans, and I'm going to have to explain to them.
I mean, look, I look at the evidence. I love Lando. I've got a, Lando Norris hat. It's great. But, like, if you say you're a Lando Norris fan, I make judgments about you as a person and your morals. And I'm usually right. It's rare that my pessimism is right, but...
Can you actually describe a Lando Norris fan? I want to see if it checks out.
I am not going to say they're all 20-something-year-old women, but they do have the personality of one. Most of them, they are either gamer bros or mildly stalkerish. They're probably a K-pop fan.
And why aren't you a Lando Norris fan?
Do you really think I would listen to that garbage? Even that assertion is almost enough for me to just cancel this podcast forever.
Continue.
And they entirely got into racing based on Twitter and Drive to Survive.
Ooh. But, you know what's sad, Eli, is when I go back in my life, I realize that before I even watched the Daytona 500, I watched an episode of Drive to Survive. I only watched 4 minutes of it because Kevin Magnussen called Nico Hulkenberg the C word, and me and my mother at the time quickly turned it off.
Uh,
Who knows? Maybe that Drive to Survive episode got me into racing.
but no, just like in their mind, Lando can do no wrong, and it's like the dude wasn't even remotely the most impressive driver of the day, and that's before the incident. Driver of the day should have
Okay,
been
wait, who's
Hulkenberg.
your driver of the day? Okay, totally can agree.
Yeah, like it should have been Hulkenberg. Another argument like Gasly, because Gasly also had a really good race, but like Hulkenberg or K Mag are the best candidates, or Russell,
Oh yeah.
because like
Oh yeah.
Russell.
What? Why didn't Russell win? Come on.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it's like Russell genuinely had pace over everyone except for the two fastest drivers, who were both in better cars than him. So it's like, it should have been one of those three. Like, either Russell, Hulk, or Gasly.
Oh well. I can't say I have an F1 driver I like more than the other. Honestly, I've never been. Okay, that's a lie. I've always been a Fernando fan. But then again, I've if you know me, Eli knows me enough to know that I will always root for any middle-aged man in a racing series. Like Valentino Rossi was my MotoGP guy, Kevin Harvick was my NASCAR guy, and Fernando Alonso is my F1 guy.
Especially if they wear glasses in the helmet.
Oh no, that's elite. Like Kevin Harvick, like that might be why Joey Logano is going to turn to my favorite racer because Joey Logano is starting to wear glasses under his helmet, and he looks amazing. Like I want to see an old man kick a young man's butt.
It's one of my favorite things, like, especially rally drivers, since they wear open face helmets with glasses. It's great.
Oh yeah, no. So, Lando Norris fans out there, I'm sorry for what Eli said. I really am.
Any Lando Norris
Is
fans
it
out there that
true?
are listening to this, tell me I'm wrong. Go into your Spotify and tell me that most of the songs you listen to are not K-pop. Because I know I'm right.
K-pop dang it, what's her name? Olivia Rodrigo.
Probably some J-pop in there too, because you're just degenerates.
Is there? You know what? I've never thought to like stereotype you and me as fans of motorsport. Like, what stereotype do we fall into? Like, I know at least my stereotype is I like the old man, and I really love being a NASCAR fan.
I don't
But I
even know
also don't
what
know how
one.
to categorize you into a stereotype.
I genuinely don't know. Aside from like my obsession over all of the like technical aspects of it. But I don't know what the
You know what?
stereotype
I
is.
guess I could totally fit into a stereotype. Like the best way to get me into anything is to buy me toys of it. And then once I buy toys and I start motorizing them, I'm like, you know what? I like the sport. Let me start watching it. The best way to get me into anything is to let me play with stuff like IRL. Get me the toys. Get me the video game. If I can get something in real life to play with, get me it like a big one.
I guess armchair race, uh, armchair team principal is the best thing I fall under.
I am very much.
Kind of like Jolene Palmer.
You're such a jerk. You're an absolute jerk.
Who
I
did I
would
just
never touch
offend more
Jolene.
by saying that? Myself or Palmer?
What the heck, man?
One of the two of us should be offended by that statement. I'm not sure which one it should be.
Levi, the type of guy to write an article describing why this British driver is completely innocent.
Let's be real. Julian Palmer was never innocent. Have you ever seen any of the races he was in?
I do know he's got a good case of karma.
Anyway, we've got about half an hour left.
Well, I am sad to say that I do not think we're getting a special guest. And listeners, I swear, I had 2 special guests this week. I had a primary and a backup. And because we have more things going on than just this podcast, they're not available, unfortunately. But that's okay, you know? We don't have to have the special guest segment. We can make our own special guest segment. And I have nothing to counter that, really.
Hold on, I have an idea. Give me a second.
Fill this space. I don't know, really.
Okay.
Next week.
Chat GPT's Eli 5 question is, in Formula 1 racing, what does DRS stand for and what is its purpose? Why is it there?
Wait, wait, what is this happening? Where is ChatGTP? Are people asking us questions?
I have decided to use AI as our special guest this week.
Oh my gosh, man. I love it. Okay.
I asked ChatGPT to give me a random basic motorsport question, and it responded with...
I know this is Eli 5, but I totally want to answer this one.
Alright, so... And I am the voice of the AI. Not the first time I've been called a robot.
Okay. Alright, so the Eli 5 segment. Welcome to the Eli 5 segment. If you're new to the Eli 5 segment, what the Eli 5 segment is we ask Eli a question, or this week, Eli asks me a question, and we have to mansplain it to the person, explain like I'm 5, in 5 minutes or less. And if we can't answer in 5 minutes or less, then we get kicked off the show forever and ever. So without further ado, now that this week has kind of been wonky, our special guest AI and his translator Eli will be asking Levi a question about motorsports. And I have 5 minutes to answer, so go ahead and ask me your question, Eli AI.
In Formula 1 racing, what does DRS stand for, and what is its purpose during a race?
Okay, on the clock. So DRS stands for Drag Reduction System, introduced in... Oh, rats. Okay, don't help me with this one. This is my segment. I gotta Google it. I think DRS, I want to say it was 2000 and... Ooh, N? Was it with the 2009 regulations? When was DRS introduced? 2011. Okay, it's been around since 2011. It is what they call an artificial racing device. It's a moving aerodynamic device where the drivers press a button on their steering wheel during a Formula 1 race, and that button controls a hydraulic flap that opens, reducing the drag or the wind pressure on the rear wing, and when it opens, it reduces that, creating more speed or less drag. And the purpose of this is to help with passing or speed during qualifying. And the race, if they want to pass somebody and they want an aid to do so, they can open the DRS flap in a zone. There are zones you can open that flap, and they can pass that car, hopefully with little to no fight. And excuse me. And in qualifying, they can use the DRS on straights to gain some more speed because, once again, no drag. Does that answer the AI's question?
That's what I'm trying to type in. I'll pause it for while I finish typing.
Oh, okay. I gotta keep the timer going. No, I gotta keep the timer going.
Okay.
Because this is a team effort. You know, Eli, it's amazing that it only took us 5 episodes to finally be lonely.
ChatGPT is satisfied with that answer.
Yes, sir. At 1 minute 54:94. And just like that, I stay on the show. Thank you, Eli Translated AI, for answering that question. Come again next week. My goodness. No, this is like, we are peak sweaty man. Like, no one is listening to this right now. Our only visitor is an AI.
Hey, we had listeners that don't know who we are for one time, for some reason, from France, and I decided to open this episode by insulting them.
Guys, yeah, no, we're kind of like Darth Vader. Where, like, anytime you try to become close to us, we just force choke you. Don't listen to this show.
I like to call it the porcupine method. It's my entire personality.
For some reason, French people really like Eli.
I mean, I can think of worse things.
And we don't have much news to get to, but I do want to open it up. We got a review on Apple Podcasts.
Oh, did we? I've not actually looked at that page since I set it up.
I gotta look it up. Dang it.
I like how you said we got a review. You didn't say that it was a positive one.
Oh! Yeah, guys, we basically are being asked to get off. Okay, here it is. We're basically getting asked to get off of Apple Podcasts. No, this was an immensely positive review. So if you ever can go on there, it's entitled, it's under the option 3 R's, Relevant Opinions. Get it? Relevant Opinions. And the title is Inevitable Legends. 5 stars. There is a massive fan of this podcast. My mom said she didn't write this, but I think she did. Found this podcast. Oh, and this is what the review says. Found this podcast trying to find a show that didn't just focus on one single motorsport, but rather boast an omnivorous oral diet of all motorsports. An omnivorous oral diet of all motorsports. Eli and Levi take the time to let a different motorsport take the spotlight each week, as well as have intellectual takes. And now I'm seriously not sure about the mental stability of this listener, as well as have intellectual takes on the racing world that many simply disregard. 4 wheels or 2 wheels, hopefully 3 at some point. Maybe we'll have to talk about Can-Am. These guys love racing and things that go. I'm a dedicated listener until these guys inevitably become the standard for motorsports podcasts, and I hope you, the reader, give them a try.
So we got a hipster listening to us.
So thank you, whoever is doing this. It means a lot.
I appreciate it.
I also, my final word is, it may be wise to talk to a therapist.
Why do you do this to yourself? We like you enough that we care about you enough to tell you to stop.
Please, I think today's the time to start talking to your doctor about possible treatment options.
We do have
that was very nice.
Yeah, it was. We do have some news about going back to McLaren again, and their IndyCar drivers again.
Did they replace Nolan Siegel?
They replaced Rossi
with a. Did they replace Nolan Siegel with a 17-year-old to ensure the future of their team?
I don't know who they're sponsoring in Indy next. They very well might.
They're progressively getting younger, more experienced drivers to ensure the security of their team. Like they're going to pick a 9-year-old off the streets and be like, "We had to make sure the future of Era McLaren was safe."
Yeah, but basically, this is a lot less controversial than the other decisions they've been making recently, which is why it's actually kind of boring. But Alexander Rossi's contract is up at the end of this year. He was asking for more money than McLaren could afford to give him at this time, especially since he's not actually bringing in sponsorships. So they signed Christian Lundgaard to join them starting next year.
The deal is he has to grow a mustache. And then he can join the team.
Ooh, interesting. Sorry, another piece of news that I had not read before this.
Uh-oh.
Apparently, it is looking like the switch to the hybrid might have um, switched which engine manufacturer is better in IndyCar. It
What?
might have given Honda the advantage.
Uh-oh.
So that could make the rest of the season interesting. But that's for next week when we talk about Mid-Ohio and the debut of the IndyCar hybrid package.
I'm so glad I went to the IndyCar race in Indianapolis to hear the V8s before they switched to V6s. The Grand Prix race.
Anyway, should think that's all of the news and all the time we have, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Next week we will 100% be talking about Mid-Ohio and the debut of those cars. To be frank, we're from Ohio, it's Mid-Ohio. We'll probably always talk about Mid-Ohio every time it happens. That's, making the ambitious assumption we're still doing this in a year.
I was about to say I think the biggest piece of news was that statement.
Hey,
We're
look,
committed to this?
I have enough opinions on motorsports to talk for both of us.
For the next 20 years.
Probably even more. But yeah, and then as for what other races we'll talk about, we haven't really decided yet. Most likely,
Yeah, like
all things being equal, Chicago.
honestly, if SVG's racing and he gets even like a top 5, I want to talk about it.
I'm gonna say, yeah, like if the other 3 series are all about the same, Chicago, and depending on how things go, we might be able to squeeze in a third race.
Yeah.
So most
Yeah,
likely
so
it'll
yeah,
be
if you're the listener, if
Go ahead.
you're French, you can count on us talking about something that you're not familiar with next week. But we're definitely talking about IndyCar. But we're gonna see how the weekend shapes up to see what our second feature race will be. But yeah, there's a good chance it'll be Chicago because of SVG. But I'm open to talking about Silverstone if another driver not named Max Verstappen wins.
I was gonna say, I think there's a really good chance that Silverstone will be good. So,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll have to see. And of course, there will be another MotoGP round this week. So we will just decide when it all
Yep.
comes to that.
We'll just we'll have to see how the week shapes out.
Yep. But anyway, that is all from us for now.
Love
Au
you,
revoir.
love you, random listener who gave us that review.
Yes, and to the 2 French listeners, why are you here?
And we're out.